because I love container gardening. It is so easy to do. If you've ever tried to dig a hole in the ground here and try to plant, you will know why I love container gardening. So it is a great class, it's a fun class. We cover the basics of container gardening, and then we kind of do, if you would like, there's a hands-on portion of the class. So we'll just kind of cover the basics. Feel free to ask questions along the way. If there's something I said that you don't understand or you want me to cover it a little bit more, we can certainly do that along the way. Okay, so container gardening 101, here we go. So container gardening is, like I said, it is so easy to do, but there's also a lot of misunderstanding, I think, that comes along with container gardening, and sometimes I wonder where a lot of the misunderstandings or myths got started, and I've never really gotten to the bottom of it, but I guess it really doesn't matter. But we'll just kind of start with the basics, and I guess the basic would be the container that you're going into. And you can plant in really just about any type of container. You can go plastic, you can go wood, you can go ceramic, metal. You can go in, a lot of people go into the coconut liner type things that they have out now. So you can plant in just about anything. I've had people bring in old lunch boxes. I've had, the old recycled metal containers. A lot of people are doing that now. So your possibilities are endless in what you're going to plant into. But depending upon what you're going to do, you need to think about, main thing is drainage. Because if you don't have good drainage, basically what you have is a bathtub. And most of your plants, no matter what, there's very few plants other than water plants that want to be wet all the time. So most plants want to have some good drainage. They're not going to want to have their roots continually wet. If they're always wet, basically what you have is rotted roots. And after time, those roots are just going to rot, and you go to pull on your plant and you pull it up and there's nothing there. It's just a big old rotted mess. So you've got to have some drainage. A good sized drainage hole is very, very important. Do not, and a lot of people do this, and this is one of those myths that I can't figure out where it came from. A lot of people think, well, I got to put rocks in the bottom of my pot. And I don't know where that came from, but don't do it, because what happens when you put rocks in here, the rocks eventually clog your drainage hole up. And then you've clogged your hole, you don't have drainage anymore. I think the concept was, well, the rocks will allow for drainage, blah, blah, blah. But I can tell you over time, those rocks settle in there, and you've lost your drainage. So it's not worth it to put the rocks in there, plus it just makes it heavier. So we really don't need rocks in there. Just a good drainage hole. Whether it's one drainage hole, two drainage holes, it doesn't matter. Some of your plastic pots, they all come with like a little pop-out thing. Make sure you're popping that little sucker out of there before you pot. I've done that before where I forgot to pop it out, and then I'm like, oh, darn it. And let me tell you, it's really hard to get that sucker out of there once you've potted it in there. So make sure you're popping it out first. A lot of your bigger pots, they'll come with a couple of holes in there. The other thing to think about is when you're potting in these big pots and stuff, if you're going to be setting them on a patio, is you might want something underneath it, some pot feet or a brick, something to set it on so that it's still going to continue to drain, plus you get some air circulation under there. Because if you're setting it right on that patio, there again, you're not going to get really good drainage sometimes. So setting it up just a little bit on something allows for that drainage. So that's something to think about. The other thing is the material that your pot is made of. Oh, sorry. I'm on the camera. So the material that your pot is made out of is going to make a difference too. So a lot of, like terracotta. I like the look And the texture of terracotta, I think it is a really pretty look, especially in Arizona. But terracotta, a lot of your terracottas don't hold up very well, especially in the wintertime. So if you're using, some terracottas are better than others. So there's a German and Italian terracotta. They're actually a better quality of terracotta. They are going to hold up better. They're more expensive, but they are going to hold up better. But even they are not going to take our freeze and thaw in the wintertime. So you're going to get some cracks in them. My recommendation is bring them inside into a garage or a basement for the wintertime. Because after a year or two, they're just going to crack and fall apart. So if you're going to use them, I think it's great. Buy a higher quality and protect it in the wintertime. Because they will eventually just disintegrate. We've all seen that, right? Plastics. They're, again, plastics are nice because they're lightweight. They're easy to move around. They tend to be more inexpensive. Problem with plastic in Arizona, what happens with our sun? It bakes everything. So great for short term, or if you're just going to be doing some vegetable gardening or herb gardening. But eventually they're going to crack because they're just, the sun bakes everything here. So they are going to crack eventually. But that's okay, you know, you probably get your money's worth out of them because they are less expensive. That's something to think about. The ceramics. Great thing about ceramics, they're heavy, they're not going to blow away. You're not going to find your ceramic pot in your neighbor's jar, I'll tell you that. The ceramics, there is a quality difference in your ceramic containers. The ceramics that we bring in are high fired, so they're a very high quality pot. They're not going to crack in our winter. So these pots can take a freeze thaw and be fine. I have had pots in my yard, some close to 20 years, and they look just as good as the day that I brought them home because they're high fired, they're a high quality pot. Are they more expensive? Yes, they are. Have I got my money's worth? You betcha. Because they held up really, really well. I have one pot that sits in front of my driveway that one of my kids, when they were learning to drive their stick shift, actually ran into. There's a crack down it. And that pot has been there with a crack for probably 10 years now, maybe more. And it's still holding together, because it's a really good quality pot. So yes, you're going to pay more, but the pots are going to hold up for a really, really long time because they're good quality pots. Yes, you can find ceramic pots that are cheaper, but they're not going to hold up as long, and they're not going to take our freeze thaws as well. So the good thing about these guys is they're just going to hang on for a long time, but they are heavy. So it is something to think about. If you're planting in these big heavy pots, put it where you want it and then pot it. Because once it's full of stuff, you're not going to be moving it unless you got 3 or 4 neighbors helping you. So figure out where you want it to be.
That's the price on the bottom. Is that upside down?
The price?
They're upside down. $84.99.
That is correct.
Is that right?
That is right.
Yeah, that's empty.
That's empty. And that's why I was saying, they're not inexpensive, but this pot is going to last you a long time. So you are going to get your value out of it. Yes, ma'am.
Can you put those on the little wheeled bases?
Yes.
So it's not going to hurt it to be on that?
No. Yeah. She was asking if you can put it on one of the little dolly saucers so you can move it around, and the answer is yes. And these you can leave out year round, even in the wintertime, not going to bother them.
How do you know it is a good quality pot?
How do you know it's a good quality pot? A lot of it's by the feel and the weight and texture of it. If you were to lift that pot up, I mean, it's got some weight to it. It's a heavy pot. You can also look at the glazing on it. It doesn't have that crackle to it. Some of your less expensive pots are not as high quality pots. They're much lighter weight because they're thinner. And you look at the glazing and it's a very thin glaze on it. So it's just kind of looking at the quality of the pot. You can tell a difference when you start looking at it. So we have really nice, not to toot my own horn, but I'm going to toot my own horn. We have some really good quality pots. And we actually go to the effort to really pick out some nice pots for our selection. So that's pots. So also, I don't have any up here but wood. I like the look of wood. I think it's really pretty. But you'll also find that wood, over time, wood will start to break down as well. But it does have a really pretty look to it. The coconut fiber pots, the main thing I noticed about them here in Arizona is that when you plant in them, you really got to watch your watering. Really, really watch your watering because they dry out really fast, especially if you get any kind of wind. The plants in them really just, you almost have to water every day, maybe even twice a day. Now I've seen it, and I think this might work, is lining them with plastic or the landscape fabric. The landscape fabric that breathes, has more of the material to it. So lining it with that and maybe poking some holes in it to allow for drainage. But if you're using that, just watch your watering. You could also use, so this is a product called Aqua Boost. It's got little crystals in it that swell up when you water it, and then it slowly decreases water, or lets the water, releases the water out. So if I was, this would be hugely important if you're planting in the coconut fiber pots, because the moisture retention in them is very, you gotta wash it here. Okay, so that's containers. Any questions on containers? Okay, let's move on to soil. So the soil that you use in your pots is hugely important because that's what your little plants, they're going from this wonderful little soil that the growers have grown them in, and they're happy in this little soil, and then we're going to take them and we're going to put it in a bigger pot that they're going to have to be in for the rest of the season. And so what some people do is they go, I got dirt in my yard. It's okay. I'll just go out to my yard and I'll just put some dirt in my pot and it'll be fine. What do you guys think?
Really good.
Won't work, especially in our soils. We have horrible soil here, absolutely horrible. It's clayish, it's not even really soil, I'm not sure what it is. But don't do it. I've seen people do that and they bring it in, they go, what happened? And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? It's like, you try to pick up the pot and it weighs, and it's just ridiculous. So don't use soil from your yard. Don't even be tempted to use soil from your yard because you will regret it. And your plants will regret it. So a good potting soil, very, very important. Now, I know I'm going to say this and I'm going to get in trouble, but I'm going to say it anyways. So I know Miracle Grow potting soil is cheap. I know you can go to other places and you can get this ginormous bag of Miracle Grow potting soil for $3. And you think, wow, I saved a lot of money, woohoo! But I can tell you, it is not the best potting soil, okay? I know it's cheap, I know it looks like good potting soil, but it is not the best potting soil for you. They have changed their formulations. It holds on to too much moisture. And I know that sounds counterintuitive. You're thinking, well, it needs to hold on moisture, right? But like we said before, you need the drainage. The plants don't always want to be wet. You need some good drainage for your plants. So you need a potting soil that holds moisture, but also allows for drainage. The Miracle-Gro potting soil, the way they've changed it, doesn't always allow for drainage. So yes, I'm going to recommend our own potting soil. Our own potting soil it has the peat moss in it, and it has a little bit of mulch in it, it has some perlite in it. It's just a really good potting soil. We've had it tested. We've had growers use it and tell us what they think of it, and they like it. We've tested it where we've grown plants in it. We've grown our, plants in our potting soil, plants in other soil, and we've said which ones grow better. They've grown really, really well in our potting soil. So I have no hesitation recommending our potting soil. I have people come back for our potting soil. So I don't mind recommending it because I believe in it. It's a good product.
What's the price of that bag?
You're just there to bother me, aren't you? It's $11.99 for a bag. What'd you say?
That's not bad.
Oh, you said that's not bad.
And what happens if you buy 3?
Oh, if you buy 3, the price goes down to $10.99 a bag. If you buy 6, the price goes down to $9.99 a bag. So it's a good deal. Yes, sir.
Is it good to use worms in the potting soil?
Is it good to put worms in the potting soil? Worms are always good.
Fertilizer.
Fertilizer? There is a little bit of a natural starter fertilizer in there. A little bit of guano in there as a natural starter. So it's good in there. Yes, ma'am.
Use that for indoor pots also.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's a great potting soil for indoor house plants as well. Definitely. So it's a great potting soil to use. The other question I get a lot is it okay if I just put crummy potting soil on the bottom and then use yours on the top? My recommendation is use all potting soil. It's going to benefit you down the road, because if you use crummy stuff on the bottom and good stuff on top, eventually it's going to mess with your drainage. So just suck it up and use good potting soil all the way through. It'll benefit you down the road. It's better for you. Okay, so potting soil, hugely important. Use a good potting soil. Any questions on that? Covered that one? Yes, ma'am. No rocks. Don't use rocks. So her question is, she has a really big pot. Her question is, should she fill the whole thing with potting soil or use something else in the bottom? My answer to that is it depends on what you're going to pot in it. So if you have a really big pot and you're going to put a tree in it, then yes, use all potting soil. If you have a really big pot and your thought is, I'm just going to put some annuals in the top or just some seasonal vegetables in the top, then what you can do is create a false bottom. So if your pot's this tall and you're only going to be putting annuals in it that are going to use 6 to 8 inches of soil, you can create a false bottom using milk jugs in the bottom. Get a plastic pot and turn it over and use that as a false bottom. So you can use a false bottom if you're just planting something in it that doesn't have a very deep root system. But if you're going to put a shrub in there or a tree in there, then use all potting soil. Okay. So, good question. Yeah, so it depends. So I have many pots where I've planted trees in them. You can grow trees in pots. You can grow shrubs in pots. You're not really limited by what you put in the pot. You just got to make the size sure the size is appropriate to what you're putting in it. Okay? Yes?
Is there different potting soils for like flowers versus vegetables, or is all the same thing?
All the same.
Okay.
The only thing that I would put in a different soil would be maybe succulents and cactus. Then I would probably put it into a cactus mix because it has a little more sand in it, allows for a little more drainage. That's the only thing I would change. So, okay, we've covered soils, pots. all that good stuff. So let's talk about actual planting. I'm going to pass this around to you so I can get it out of my way. This is a sign-up sheet for the emails. If you'd like to get this particular class, the information on this class, you can put your email down and we will send you the information. You'll get the YouTube for the class. Is that right, Ken?
Yeah, the YouTube and whatever handouts that you want to provide.
Okay, so I'll just start that there. Okay, so when it comes to putting your containers together, one of the recommendations that I have is that you put like-minded plants together. So what I'm saying with that is you don't want to put one plant that likes the sun, one plant that likes the shade, or one plant that wants to be really, really dry with one plant that likes the moisture. You want to keep what they like, whether it's sun, shade, wet, dry. You want to keep those types of plants together. So one of the first goals, my new love is succulents. I'm really learning to like succulents because they are so versatile and they don't require a lot of care. So I'm really learning to like them. So this is one little combo I put together. This is an agave in the center with the hens and chicks and another hens and chick. This is called Angelina. I love the color of this kind of light green with a little bit of red to it. This is another succulent called the blue spruce sedum. The thing I like about this is it's all evergreen, even in the winter. So even in the dead of winter, this thing is going to have color to it. The other thing I like about this, if I forget to water it for like a week, it's going to be fine. So for you people that travel a lot, or you people that just don't want to be out every day worried about watering your plants, or you just have a really hot patio or sunny spot, check out the succulents. They are fabulous. Textures are amazing. But be careful. Not every succulent you see is winter hardy for here. And not every succulent you see can take the full hot sun. So be careful. Even like a little aloe vera plant, it can't take the full hot sun. So be careful when you're picking out your plants. Ask questions about what you're picking. Succulents are fun. I'm really learning to enjoy them and their textures. So that's succulents. Oh. Sorry. I figured once I got that all planted, I would have some bare spaces in there. I'm not a big fan of bare spaces in my pots. So I would tuck in some, this is sedum. What's the name of that? What is this for?
Dragon's blood.
Thank you, dragon's blood. I use blood something like I need it. The dragon's blood sedum. So I would tuck this in, just a little 6-pack. So I could take it and just tuck it in those little bare spaces. Because the other thing I don't, the thinking used to be plant your pot so that there's room for them to grow in, and it's like, okay. But how much time do we all have, right? I like my pots to look pretty the second I'm done planting them. So I do not leave a lot of space in my pots for them to grow in. I want them to look full and pretty. And the other thing is, as much as we all try, invariably, especially with little 6-packs, something's gonna die, or just look ugly, get out of here. So pack them full. That way if something does need its demise, you can pull it out of there and you're not gonna have a big empty spot in there. The other thing, so you know how the trends come and go. So the big trend right now is monocolor. So have everything in your pot the same color. So I pulled this one together with that concept of everything being the same color. So this is Dracaena, or Coraline. It's called Dancing Cha-Cha. I'm like, where did they come up with these names? But it has kind of a real pretty, kind of orangey red center coming out of it. So I mixed it with this orange. This is called Perfectura Mandarin. Kind of a pretty orange. So I mixed it with that. And this is an orange pumpkin spice calabacoa, which is a real pretty, I love the calabacoa. They're kind of similar to the petunias. They just spread out really nicely, really tough too. There again, staying with my orange. And this is a coral fountain glass. This would be a perennial down in Phoenix. Up here, not so much. I thought it was really cool the way it draped down. I thought it'd be fun to play with, you know, like at the front of the pot, draping down. Oh, that's a really cool texture. So that would be an example of a pot that's that monocolor look. And then I thought, well, you know, if you didn't like the monocolor look, you could pull out one of these. And this is a new one this year. This is called Night Sky. It's a purple with spotted. Oh, that's really cool. But I love purple and orange together. I know it's a weird combo, but I like it. So I thought, well, that'd be really pretty together. Kind of contrasting colors. So that's the other thing. You know, everybody has their own taste when it comes to color. And I think you've got to follow your own taste. You know, if you love really bright contrasting colors, go with really bright contrasting colors. If you like really soft colors or pastels, go with really soft pastel colors. Don't let magazines or your neighbor or anyone else dictate to you what you think looks right. Go with the colors that you like. I think sometimes we get too caught up in what we think it's supposed to look like, but I think plants should make you happy. So go with what makes you happy. Yes?
Are you going to talk about shading locations like?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep, I got a couple of combos for that too. Yep. The other thing I was going to talk about was herbs, and then I'll do shade. So herbs in pots, I love to mix herbs in containers. You can do just a straight herb container. Rosemary does fantastic in containers. The thing I like about the herbs in containers is the textures. There's a lot of different textures in herbs. This is a golden thyme. I love it that it has kind of that variegated green and yellow. Really, really pretty. This is tall curry. This is not really a true curry. Oh my God, the picture's in.
Got a great shot of your sneakers.
Oh, good. I like these, they're new. This is not really a curry that you cook with, but it smells really good. If you love the smell of curry, this is amazing. I just love to rub it and smell it. So it's not really a cooking one, but it's one to mix in just for the smell. And I like the look of it in there. Just the gray against the yellow and the green is a really nice texture in there. Mix it in with the golden oregano. See how that yellow really makes the green pop? Plus it picks up the yellow from the thyme. So the colors really mix nicely together in there. And if you want to bring in more yellow, there's the sage. There's the yellow sage in there. Great for cooking. And there's no reason you can't mix some flowers in with your thyme. You can easily mix flowers in with any of your vegetables or any of your herbs. You could put some marigolds in there. And that helps kind of repel those little insects that we want to be in there as well. I just picked this because I like the color of it. That'd be pretty in there and kind of drape over the edge of any of the pots. I will, a lot of times at home, we often put, many of our pots, we put a big tomato in the center of it, and then we'll put calabacoas on the edges, just to kind of soften the edge of the pot. It's very, very pretty. And there's calabacoa. or million bells is the other name, will sometimes go by. So there's no reason you can't mix your vegetables and your flowers together. Don't be afraid to do that. Easy to do it. Peppers look really cool in pots with flowers around them. You get the green of the plant plus the red, of the peppers and stuff on there, so you get a nice mixture of colors. Don't be afraid to put shrubs in your pots. You can easily take a pot, put a little shrub in the center of it, and mix your flowers on the edges. This is a little double albacoa. This one, this is Lobularia, very similar to the alyssum, but it is crazy. It really drapes down, it's really, really long. I actually had this go through the winter in a pot a couple of years ago. It was beautiful all winter long. Absolutely gorgeous. Drapes down, smells so good. You guys got to come up and smell some of this stuff in class. It smells really nice. Dusty Miller is another one of those plants that is sold as an annual. Annual means one season, but acts like a perennial. How many of you guys have this come back year after year after year? Yeah, it stays often through the winter time. So it's one of those that you can plant with your pansies in the fall and in the spring. It often stays through the summertime. It stays back again through the fall and the winter. So it's a great kind of plant to put in those pots. It just kind of hangs around, and you can change your other plants out, but this one stays as a stable in the pot. Good one to use.
What's the name of that tall green plant you just put down?
This one? This is a little Alberta spruce.
Spruce?
It's a little Alberta spruce. It's a dwarf spruce. And the reason why this one is so great to use in containers is it is very slow growing. So it grows maybe a ½ inch a year. So you can put it in a container because it's not going to outgrow your container anytime soon. So if you put it in the center and you put your other plants around it, and it's just going to stay there in the center and always be like the focal point of your container. And you can change your other plants out around it because he's tiny.
But it has to be transplanted into a bigger container, right?
It could stay in this one for a long time, actually. Yeah. It's smooth growing. So the other, like we were saying, you can use your perennials in your containers. There's no reason you can't put a perennial in a container and then switch out your annuals around it. So you can use that as the center or the focal point of your container, switching these guys out throughout the year. So next year, this guy's going to be a little bit bigger, but say you're tired of using this calicoa, you want to put something else different in. So he's gone, and you put something else different in next year. So you can use perennials and annuals in the same container. There's no reason you can't. I frequently do that. Okay, you're asking about shade plants. I'm going to run Vincent over here. He's sleeping. Is he waking up?
Yeah, fell back.
So some good shade plants. He's like, there's something moving. One of my favorite shade plants is Hoopera. This one is Crimson Curls. The reason I love Hoopera so much is there's a great variety of colors that they come in. Crimson Curls has that kind of nice red color to it, but there's also a great lime green color you can use. Put them together and they just shout at you. This does flower, but it's kind of insignificant. It's flower. It's more attractive just for the color of it. Very, very pretty. This is a little perennial geranium. Pretty little flower off of there. Also has color in the leaves. Matches nicely with the Crimson Curls because it has kind of that red in the leaf, but it matches nicely with that. Good color combo. This one has a horrible name. It's called dead nettle. Like, who came up with that name? But very, very pretty. It just kind of drapes over the edge of the pot, and it puts off a purple flower. But it has kind of a silvery tone to it, so it shows up nicely in those shady areas. And then who can forget ivy? The thing I found about ivy is I've been putting it in some of my full sun pots, but because I'm putting it at the edge of the pot, I have found that a lot of times, let me see if I can find a good example, it's being shaded by the other plants. So I found that if you put it at the edge of the pot, because usually ivy needs the shade, but it's being shaded by other things, so it seems to hold up pretty well. So sometimes you got to experiment with your pots. It's amazing what you find you can do, but you got to play around a little bit, not be afraid to play around a little bit with things. If you lose something, it's okay. It's a plant. You can get more, right? So don't be afraid to experiment with things. We were talking about the carnation earlier. This is another, it's the same carnation, just a little bit different variety, but it is a perennial. But it just keeps blooming all season long. It'll come back next year too. So really fun to put into the pots. Does very well. Another little carnation. So it's fun to mix the perennials and the annuals together. I find that I'm doing that more and more and more. I find that I'm mixing herbs in with my pots more and more and more. And vegetables in with my pots more and more and more. Grasses. I'm putting a lot more grasses in them because I like the texture that they bring into containers. And a lot of your grasses are perennials. So it's nice if they're coming back the next year. They come back a little bit bigger, but that's okay because it changes the way I do the pot the next year. So it just gives it a different look the next year. But they're fun to play with. They just change the texture of things.
How tall will that grass get?
This grass will get about 18 inches. So it will change the way the pot looks next year, but it'll be cool. I've been using the red sedge in pots. I really like the way the red sedge looks. It's kind of some people think it looks dead because it has kind of a brown look to it. But very, very pretty because I mix it with the heucheras and stuff in it, so it kind of gives it more of a polished look. But it's pretty. But everybody has their own taste, right? Can't be afraid to have your own taste. So the other thing we're talking about shade, ivy. I do ivy on a topiary. So I have it on a big 3-ball topiary. And then at the bottom of the big pot, I have different heucheras. And I also mix in Gabera daisies and begonias and that type of thing in my real shady spot. And it's really pretty in there. So I get the height with the topiary, and then I put bright color annuals with the begonias, which I don't have a lot of the shady, warm season stuff in yet because it's still a little bit cold. But we'll be getting the sweet potato vine, begonias. I do have some Gerber daisies in. They're absolutely gorgeous. I should have brought one up, but we'll see after class. So a lot of neat shade stuff you can put in. So once you get everything potted, I mean, there's just so many different things you can do. When I was trying to pick out stuff for the class, I was walking around going, ooh, I should show them this. Ooh, I should show them that. There are so many combinations and so many different things you can do. Just don't be limited by what you think you can't do. Ask, can I put these two together? Will they be happy together? Can I put it in the sun? Can I put it in the shade? That's what we're here to do, is help you put your combinations together. So don't be afraid to ask about what can go together. Yes?
Recommendations are going to be listed by
Javelinas. Javelinas are tough. You know, there are some things that are tried and true. Snapdragons, things that have kind of rough textures to the leaves. Anything in the herb family, they seem to leave herbs alone. Things that have strong smells to them, they leave alone.
They don't like rosemary.
Rosemary,
We got one outside that's like
yeah,
8 feet in diameter that
right.
has been there for 30 years.
Rosemary, lavender, carnations, sages, some things, there's things that are tried and true. So ask us, plus we have a list, so we can help you with that. So once you get everything potted and you want to keep your pots, plants looking nice, there's a couple of things you can do to help. If you want to keep things blooming, this is the flower power. This is a water-soluble food. Very high in phosphorus, which is that middle number, so it's a 10, 54, 10. 54 being the phosphorus, that's what encourages blooms. So you use this every 2 weeks. Trust me, it works. If you just use it religiously every 2 weeks, you will keep things blooming. Some things do need to be deadheaded. So we were talking about the carnations. If you want to keep them blooming, you just have to pop their little dead heads off, and that will encourage them to bloom. Some plants need it more than others. Geraniums. You want to keep geraniums, got a jumper. If you want to keep geraniums blooming, you really need to deadhead them. Other plants will deadhead themselves. So calabacoas, these guys, they'll kind of deadhead themselves. The blossom will dry up, and it just kind of falls off on its own. So you just kind of shake them every once in a while, and they seem to be fine. Other plants, you really got to go out and pick the dead blossoms off to keep them blooming. But fertilizing is hugely important for your blooming plants. Also important for your vegetables. If you're trying to get a lot of tomatoes, a lot of peppers, a lot of cucumbers, zucchinis, you got to fertilize them to keep the blooms coming on. So very important, don't forget that. So this is, I always relate this as, this is your Coke or your chocolate shake, you know, but if you also need, you can't survive on Coke alone, you also need meat, potatoes, and the all-purpose food. This is a granular food, slow release food, it's an all-natural food. That one you just throw into your pots once a month or so, every month and a half. And then just slowly feeds. It slowly breaks down and it gives you more nutrient over a longer period of time. So using them both together is very important. It's not just one or the other. It's kind of both of them together. The other thing that's important when you're, after you put your pots together, so you've kind of traumatized them, right? Because you've pulled them out of their little pots. You're taking them. A lot of them come out like this, right? You're going to put it into the pot with the soil, so you got to loosen it up. You're kind of taking those roots at the bottom, pulling them out. You're loosening it up. Then you're going to take that and you're going to put it in your bigger pot. So you've kind of traumatized it a little bit, not bad. I call it tickling the roots. But once you've done that, you want to encourage more root growth on it. So using the Root and Grow, this is a rooting hormone. It also helps with transplant shock. You're going to mix this up in water. It's a concentrate, so it's like 3 tablespoons in a gallon. Once you get your pot all potted and settled in there, you're going to water it in with this. And it just helps encourage new root hairs. It's going to help it root out and become a stronger plant. A plant with a stronger root system is going to be able to withstand those days when it's 100 degrees and the wind is blowing. It's going to be a stronger plant. It's going to be able to hold up better. So we definitely want to encourage that in our tough climate that we have, right? So yeah, when you're potting your plants, the other thing I was talking about when we want to make sure that we have a full pot, you can squeeze your little plants. You can take some of that dirt off in there so you can fit more in there. A lot of people freak out when you do this. They're like, what are you doing? It's okay. You can do that. So you can squeeze it so that you can get your next plant right in there. So you don't have to have that big full plant in there. So I can put my next one right in there, and next one right in there. The other thing you can do, I'll take this way. So say he was here in my pot, and I wanted him to be at an angle because I wanted him to drape over the edge. I could kind of put him in at an angle. I don't have to just go up right down, right? It doesn't have to be vertical. I could put him in at an angle so that he'll drape over the edge of my pot. Sometimes we're very two-dimensional people, aren't we? But we could put it at an angle so that it drapes over. And we could do that with just about anything. Say I wanted to take him. You see how he's pretty ripped out in there, right? We wouldn't want to leave him like that. We would want to make sure we're loosening that up. Especially on the bottom. It's like, hey man, what's going on? Oh, not a lot better, unless it's dinner time. So say, I wanted that one at more of an angle. I could put it in my pot at that angle. So it doesn't have to be just up and down. Good. If you want that one at an angle. It's an ivy geranium. I can put him at an angle and have him drape more. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions on loosening the roots? Okay. So because we're doing it, that's why we want to make sure we're using that root and grow on there to help with the trauma of that. Back in there. Okay. Is there anything I didn't cover? Anybody has questions? Yes.
On your succulents, are they frequently identified as which ones are cold hardy?
So out in the lower greenhouse down here, anything that's sitting out there is a winter hardy succulent. If it's in the houseplant room, not winter hardy.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you could put it outside on a covered patio for the summer, but you would definitely want to bring it in before the first frost. These, like these, all of these guys I got outside, so they would be fine outside in the winter time.
Does it say how slow growing they are?
Succulents?
Yeah.
Most of these are actually pretty fast growing, but you can always trim them back too and keep them under control. You first.
Can you mix like an ivy with succulents?
I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't, although ivies don't like to be very wet. I still think they're probably too different to mix.
Is there any type of tomato plant that grows better in a pot than others, or can you just put any type of vegetable in a pot?
You can put any type of vegetable in a pot. There are some tomatoes that are more bush type tomatoes, and then there's most of your tomatoes actually like to vine. So you could use it either way, but if you want the tomato to be more of the center upright, look for more of a bush tomato. But if you want it to be more drapey, just look for any tomato. A lot of your cherry tomatoes like to be more upright. Yes?
When you were handling these little plants before, you mentioned the name oregano. That's a spice, but that's not oregano.
Yeah, this is an oregano. It's a golden oregano. But you could cook with it. Yeah, and there's a bunch of different oreganos. There's Mexican oregano, spicy oregano, Mediterranean, like 4 or 5 different oreganos. This smells
One's fresh and one's dry.
Yeah, oh, is that what it is?
I think that's what he's
Oh, okay. Yeah, but it smells like oregano. It's really good. Yeah. Yes.
So I always thought these plants needed a lot of space for their roots to grow and be
healthy. And you're saying pack them in there? Is
I'm
that
saying
true?
pack 'em in there.
Vegetable land as well?
I mean, be appropriate, you know, an annual, especially annuals, because so if it's an annual, if it's one season, it's gonna live from now until October. You know, it doesn't need a lot of root system. If it's a perennial, you might want to make sure you get a fairly appropriate size pot. A lot of your herbs are perennials, you know, so they're going to come back year after year. And that's why I was saying, you know, with your pot, if you're going to put perennials or trees or shrubs, just make sure it's a big size pot. But yeah, you can cram these things in together. The other thing about succulents, they don't need to be very deep. You can actually go with a pretty shallow bowl for a succulent because they actually have a very shallow root system. There's another kind of cool thing about them.